I think we have an issue right now where our star players, like they want to pop off, they want to carry. So Arrow sometimes, he wants to go in and be more aggressive than, maybe the last split, which is understandable. But that may be where that comes from. Whenever he'll overextend just a little bit because he just wants to pop off, do something crazy.
We are back into game 3.
That's funny coming from him, though, after we just saw that turret dive, Braum by himself, flashing for the Q.
Sometimes Arrow will do something crazy. Sometimes
I want to pop off, too.
Sometimes I'll follow up and flash underneath a turret and go for that winner's bite knockout punch. Sometimes that's what you got to do.
He just sat down over there, too. He's laughing.
Glad to see that he's on the same page, having much fun with this as we are, because that was in an absolutely insane game number 2. And we're going into game 3 of P1 versus Dig to see who's walking away with the win here. Now, before we do anything else and actually move forward, let's go ahead and walk down memory lane yet again with a play that you love so much, Kobe, with that final game-ending push.
All right, so let's, again, they bring up the minion wave. We didn't see the beginning of this, but Ryu went. He used his Baron buff to speed up the minion wave to get it to this turret, and Dignitas came over to defend it, rightfully so, but then into the Fog of War here, into the jungle they controlled with that Talia wall, delayed them so long, the turret was dead by the time that they could come mount that defense. That's why I liked it so much, because it was such a tactical ending to the game. Bait him down bottom, Talia wall cut him off, and then there's no turret that they have to deal with. So that's why Phoenix One were able to end that one so quickly. That was one of the fastest games we've had this split, just over 25 minutes.
When you get a pentakill and then you make a game-ending play like that, you deserve player of the game. So the man that built the wall, Ryu, he was the player of the game from game number 2 very, very easily. You saw the performance that he had, the damage chart at the end of the game, along with the plays with the wall as well as the pentakill. I can't really think of anybody else that had such a defining impact on the game.
Game number 1, Keen. Game number 2, Ryu.
Battle of the
Pogs.
Battle of the mid lanes. It should be an interesting mid lane matchup this time around, simply because these two have each had such a huge impact on the game. I expect to see their teams recognize that, respect that, play around them, see if we can get one of those guys to pop off just as much in game number 3. But considering the performances we saw with Dignitas, it was close in game number 1, and then they just ran away with it. Phoenix One in game number 2, they just never let Dig even get their footing at all. They were always on the back foot until Phoenix One just pushed them over into the ground and said, this is our Nexus now. I want to see who's going to step up in this third game, because they've both showed the ability to so far.
Yeah, and it has been a really fun series, simply because both teams have been drafting pretty heavily into crowd control, pretty heavily into playmaking, right? They've really embraced the direction that the meta is trending right now, and it's resulting in a lot of fights. And the team basically that commits to it first is very often the one that's coming out ahead. And it's only a couple seconds difference that's really meant that difference in who's going to be able to win that skirmish. Here they come, the rest of the squad now, back after trying to calm down a little bit from game number 2 and refocus here for the series deciding game.
Just got to make sure that you got a cool head, that everything's ready to go. You're not too excited about the outcome of game number 2. Big is relaxed. He's chilling like a villain. He's there. Everything's good to go.
Acting a fidget.
Lod's just spinning.
He's centering himself right now.
Yeah. It's a focus tool, right?
Don't.
No, okay, now we're going to focus on that. Thank you, based cameraman. See? You said you were a pro at this. Is he good?
I had no point did I ever say that I.
That's what I perceived you saying, so that's what we're going with.
I do like the America flair, though, on it.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool one. I got to give bonus points to that.
NA talent right there.
Exactly. You've got to represent the region. He's getting ready for Rift Rivals by making sure, but Dignitas isn't going to Rift Rivals, so he's just getting ready to support the team that is going in his opponents that he now has to take down.
Nice
it's a big mental thing. Yeah, I tried to, but it didn't.
Honestly, though, heading into game number 2, let's talk about how important the mid lane has been. Because you mentioned it before, right? You were like, okay, player of the games. Who's going to pop off this time? Who's going to be the big deciding factor? And a lot of it has come from, how they're playing around those mid laners. Like, the mid laners themselves didn't solo kill each other.
Right.
They didn't absolutely crush the other one in mid lane, in the farm, in the early game. It hasn't really been about that. Lane dominance for the early game for either of those mid laners, even though both of them had really outstanding games. The outstanding part came in the mid game, in their team fighting and how they played with the rest of their team, and how that they were actually able to zone so efficiently. Now, that type of thing is always very interesting because drafting around that and playing around that and having confidence once it does get to the team fight phase and once it does get to that mid game has been incredibly important.
Makes for an interesting show, but we've made our way here to the picks and bans in game number 3. We'll have to see if Phoenix 1 can finally find that first match win here in Summer Split. They'll ban Kennen, Fiora, and Zaya to start things off, as LeBlanc, Kate, and Zach are banned away from by Dignitas, I should say. Very similar ban stories being told by both sides. In Phoenix 1, they said, look, Mike Young on Lee Sin, it worked, let's do it again.
All right, early picking it again. I do know that this is a comfort champion for him. As I said, in the 2 games that I have seen him in Challenger, he's been playing Lee Sin, so I'm going to go ahead and extrapolate that is his main champion.
We're going to assume a lot based on those things. Hey, you've seen more of him than I have. I watched a 48-second clip on Twitter of him playing Zach and ulting people.
There you go.
But we've seen 3 Zach bans in 3 games, so I haven't really got to transfer that knowledge to the Rift today.
Good. I hate Zach. Too busted right now. Keep him off the Rift. I do love that we keep seeing early picks on Rakan, because that signals will probably be still trending towards high playmaking potential for both sides. And this time around, Shrimp is going to be the one piloting that Kha'Zix into the Lee Sin of Mike Young.
And this is the matchup, remember, that we got to see in game number 1, except it's just switched this time. Shrimp was on the Lee, Mike was on the Ka, going to be switched around this time. But still, the thing that will remain constant is big on Rakan. Dignitas loves giving this pick to him. Seeing what he can do with it. Shady again going to be on the Braum as the Galio is locked in for Phoenix 1.
All right, so they're going to deny the Kha'Zix Galio combination that we saw before. Attempted use. Galio here, definitely flexible. I like that you get it in the first round, so it's still up in the air as far as mid lane versus top lane bans. Last time we saw him split. The difference there, Fiora is already off the table though, so that's one of those split pushers you don't have to worry about, who absolutely is able to abuse matchups up there on the top side. But again, looks like the answer is the same.
Yep.
Shen fine into Galio, tank to tank, both have semi-global. Shen has full global. And then even if they switch the Galio to mid lane, not too big of a deal. Shen just can farm it out and play for that split push.
Dignitas focusing on that top lane in the second part of the bans here. Victor banned away by Phoenix 1. Not willing to let Keen have that potential from game number 1 again here. I totally respect that. Understandable. Because the Dignitas comp is looking similar to what we saw in that first game. You do have the Rakan, you do have the Shen. I'll be interested to see if maybe they want to put Lod on that Twitch again, maybe go for the Submarine for a second time.
Definitely a possibility. And with Braum showing already, you do have to take into account that Unbreakable will, right? It really does stop a lot of other options where the projectiles are so much less reliable. You don't want to pick, especially like a mid laner with an ultimate that can easily be negated by the Braum wall. So we'll see. Looks like gonna go with the Bears again here.
Yep, Twitch was banned away. That was the final ban from Phoenix 1. So really paying homage to that first game composition of Team Dignitas. Arrow's thinking about Draven though. Will he actually lock that one in? I mean, it would be the perfect answer after what we saw from Shady, where he was talking about, yes, perfect. He was talking about Arrow wanting to make plays and do big stuff, and this is the champion that embodies that. Okay, it's Kog'Maw instead.
All right, it's Kog'Maw backed up by, very possibly a mid lane Galio, and for those you can see a lot more threat of earlier Galio ultimates. So far in these games where you've seen him in top lane, it's been pretty deep into the game by the time we start seeing the Galio ults actually used in those team fights. So if he were to transition into the mid lane, then you'd have to worry a bit more in the bottom lane about the Braum initiation and those types of combos we talked about with jungler visitation down there early as well. Not going to be the case this time around, but Talia, you have to worry about similar things. So again, a lot of mobility here for Phoenix 1. And if the game goes a similar way as last game, mobility is going to be important in answering these skirmishes that have been breaking out very quickly.
Dignitas decides that the way they're going to answer that monster carry from game number 2 is by putting Keen on Cassiopeia to deal with it there in the mid lane.
Yeah, definitely another very high damage in the late game, potential here from Keen. He could match up very well versus Talia. I always do enjoy watching the Cassiopeia Talia matchups because both of them really do rely on their speed boost. You know, Talia gets extra movement speed on worked ground in those little circles, and then Cassiopeia, if you land your poison, has to utilize that to dodge the other's skill shot. So we'll see about that one, and if the Lee Sin or Kha'Zix is able to get that early invade off. We have been seeing, you know, more focus on clearing so far, rather than the explosive, you know, level 3 ganks or invades.
Which is kind of surprising because the junglers have been those explosive early champions. It's been Lee, it's been Elise, it's been Kha'Zix, but they just haven't found those windows quite the way they're looking for them. Instead, going for that strong farm that you mentioned, usually getting level 4 before you see any kind of action like that. One thing that I'm going to go ahead and point out is that you do have 3 of the same champs on the Phoenix 1 side that they won with in their win in this series, while 2 of the same champs, the Shen and the Rakan, are being reprised by Dignitas from their game win. So you are seeing some returning successes here from both teams, and we'll get to take a look and see which one of those will truly be the success and walk away with the match win. As the teams are on to Summoner's Rift, the platform gates will be going down momentarily, and they're off.
Right.
Now, will we get some of that action around the Raptor pits? Will we get some of those invades, you think? Is anybody going to be risky?
I don't think so, you know, due to the way that we've seen this series kind of unfold. Remember, though, that this is actually fairly surprising that this series has been this close, has been this exciting. You know, Phoenix won with such an explosive 25.5-minute win in that last game. This is a team that just made another roster swap, has been constantly swapping around supports and junglers, and really having to work through a lot in order to kind of rebuild synergy and build up, you know, teamwork among these guys that have been constantly switching off. But very strong showing for them, coming in as the 0-4 team versus Dignitas, who you know, are 3-1 and started off so strong. It's definitely a bit surprising and bodes very well for this team and their recent changes. During that long explanation, though, you did get your Raptor awards, although no real exciting fights over them.
Yeah, we got to see a couple rocks thrown around. Shrimp ate a couple of those to the back as he was walking away, but sadly no big level 1 fights. No crazy way to start off this third and final game in the match, I should say. Ryu will get some good poke there onto Keen, and he gets it right down at the right time, too. Minions are arriving, so there's not enough time for Keen to get back and heal that off. So some solid damage to stick there onto his opponent early on here in this matchup. You will see the blue buff start from Shrimp's Kha'Zix, as the red buff start is going to be the name of the game there for Mike Young.
Yeah, delayed entry into the lane as well, so a little bit of guesswork as far as the start for him goes. And Mike Young, this time around, he may be coming top with a red buff pretty early on. They could return to their strategy of trying to gank Shen early. You know, you go to the source of the global and punish him early on. Last time it worked very well versus Someday. They got early kills off of him. They got early objectives because of it. First third gold, you know, Rift Herald. A lot of success there. Shrimp, though, is also running a top-end route here where he's ending on the top side.
One thing to keep in mind this game about the top lane as compared to last game. Last game you had 2 of those big bruisers there with the Jarvan and the Kled. This time around, the hard tanks, the guys that are always going to be useful pretty much no matter what. A lot harder to set them back as Ryu eats a little bit of damage here. Shrimp will jump in, fire off the rockets, eat a turret shot for his trouble, but he has the red buff. He'll be happy to trade off that HP with Ryu to give Keen a better setup.
And the reason that he even goes for that harassment there and jumps into dangerous territory by the turret is because Ryu is still level 3. They wanted to go for that before Ryu hits level 3s because generally you'll get your Q and your little...
Shrimp, all right. He has to get himself over the wall, gets stunned up by the winner's bite, and the ward allows Arrow to take a couple more spits at him and put the paint on.
A little bit of a misclick there, walks back, doesn't quite hit onto the blast cone first time around, and takes a lot of harassment. Forced back into the jungle, you know, it's not too big of a deal though.
He'll continue to heal up, not really under any real threat just yet, as Zig's spending a lot of his mana, shoving this wave up and being aggressive early on here in the lane. He doesn't have to worry about his lane opponent having that jungle help because they did see Shrimp in the bottom side. Arrow said, look, I got some good chunk damage onto him. He's just going to be farming, so you don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. And he now goes over to ward because you can account for about a 30-second timer, you know, without boots coming into effect. If you want to be a little bit safe, then you probably go like 25 seconds as far as how long it will take someone to get back to your lane from the fountain this early in the game with no boots. And he does, utilize that time effectively. Then he's able to go get that trinket ward over in the tri-bush.
Arrow on this Kog'Maw is going to be one of those guys who turns very scary as the game goes on. He's allowed to scale up and not be under massive amounts of pressure. We all know what late game Kog'Maw can do as one of the hyper carries in League of Legends, but there are plenty of playmaking opportunities on the side of Dignitas to make their way on top of that Kog'Maw. You've got Shen taunts, you've got the big initiations from Big himself, you've got Chains of Corruption from Lod as well. Playmaking, the name of this series, like you mentioned, Kobe. As Big is weaving in and out of the fight, trying to get in there, get some damage, get some CC. Lod backing him up, and it'll be a pretty even trade here between these bottom laners.
Yeah, a little bit of control for the minion wave here, still on Dignitas' side, and Varus is quite a good laner. Able to keep control of that. Interesting how Shrimp, so he visited top side a little bit, but at that point, Someday was already pushing back, and they didn't really want to stay there and force it. Meanwhile, bottom side, they continue to go for these trades, and Mike Young does have the possibility of heading down here, as does Ryu.
Both thinking about it.
They've been tracked.
Well, Keen spots that out. Not going to allow those sort of troubles to go through and plague his bottom lane. Meanwhile, topside, you saw Zig go ahead and go back, use the TP to return to lane with full laning build on Galio. All 3 Dorian's rings accounted for. He'll be spam clearing those waves, leveling up to 6 in no time. You do see the ultimate coming online for Ryu before anyone else. Keen should be getting his shortly. Mike Young making his way bottom side, trying to see if he can find the gank here. Lod eating quite a lot of damage to get both the heal and the exhaust out of Dignitas' bottom.
Yeah, and the exhaust comes out after the burst from Lee Sin, after he's already used all of his abilities, so no effectiveness there from it, and then the cooldown not going to be available for the possible Talia ultimate that you mentioned.
Ryu still sitting pretty comfortable here on the Talia, and remember, they did leave this counter pick option open for Keen the entirety of the draft. Dignitas wanted to make sure that they got a good matchup in there. Cassiopeia considered a good matchup against Talia generally. He does have a small CS lead, or did up until that last wave was cleared out, but Ryu seems perfectly fine in this matchup right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a skill matchup for early on. Cassiopeia has a super good late game. You always count on that ability to carry team fights there. But Talia definitely should be able to get push advantage and threaten those roams, as we've seen the bottom lane have to kind of respect. Anytime Ryu goes into the fog of war, don't want to get cut off there by the wall. Meanwhile,
again, though, they've got something to go with those roams as well. Last time around it was a Kled, this time around it's a Galio. Phoenix One is making sure that when they draft that Talia, they've got other stuff to complement it and make those roams even that much more effective.
definitely true. Controlling the vision in the river also is of the utmost importance right now. Shrimp coming in to lend a hand in the vision wars.
Or a claw. It's kind of what bugs have. They don't all have, aren't all fortunate enough to have hands, but he can still whap those wards down, get rid of those.
I think it
Remove
is
some of that
possible to have both hands and claws. Claws attached to the hands.
Yeah, Zed. Like, Zed has hands with claws on them.
Perfect.
That's pretty good. But Kha'Zix is not that fortunate. We're not all so lucky to be a Zed.
Maybe he'll get a new evolution in the future. 5 claws.
5 claws. You listen to that game design team? Kha'Zix evolution rework. Here you go. Dignitas, though, they're currently just a few hundred gold ahead of their opponents. 8 minutes into the game, no first blood yet from either side. Cloud Drake the first one up, generally not as valuable as the mountains that have showed up before, so don't be expecting either team to be focusing on that too hard early on here. Instead, Shrimp will continue moving around, playing this vision game, clearing those out, and just making it that much scarier, and making it that much more difficult for Phoenix One to feel safe moving forward and trying to set up.
Yeah, and I think that Team Dignitas are actually pretty content with scaling up. You know, they do have the Cassiopeia we talked about to rely upon. You know, Shrimp getting through the early game there versus Lee Sin without anybody really making a huge play or affecting one of the lanes in a big way is just fine for them. Here comes the first kind of attempted offensive move. The lane gank coming through on the bottom or on the top side here.
I don't know, do you even have the damage to kill Someday in this kind of a spot? I mean, you're going to have to get through Spirit's Refuge. You're going to have to get through his own shields. And with a Galio and a Lee Sin versus a Shen, it's going to be a pretty tall order.
Yeah, it was more of a situation where there's a possibility that Shrimp goes for an offensive move since Galio's pushing the wave. So he's kind of setting up his recall in that bush as a little bit of safety for Zig. You know, Zig wanted to get the mini wave into the turret and moved up a little bit. So no hesitation there on recalling once he got into that bush. Yeah, upon further review, not looking for an offensive play, more of a cover, counter gank. Bottom lane, though, might be a little bit more offensive in nature here.
I'd like to also extend a warm welcome to our NALCS1 viewers who are now joining us here for the stream. You're hopping into Phoenix 1 versus Dignitas. Best of 3, tied up 1-1. If Phoenix 1 can win here, they will find their first series win of the split. If Dignitas can win here, they're going to go to a 4-1 record, and that is pretty darn nice.
And if you're just joining, there should be a jungler in this brush.
Uh-oh. Change of Corruption not finding the mark, though. Shrimp and Mike Young both making their way into the fight, but Stand United will bring Someday as Zig comes in. Ryu making his ride into the fight onto the wall as now the juggle happens onto Someday, who's going to be taken very low. The damage continues, but the death will not show. Dignitas disengages in time, and everyone from across the map shows up.
Yeah, both teams were looking to make a play on the bottom side at the same time, so everybody was ready to instantly react there. And Mike Young was coming around through the lane, even though Shrimp had gotten there much earlier. They were waiting for the right opportunity, so everybody is able to get out in the end. Only the flash from Lee Sin is blown on Phoenix. One side, though, while Big on the other side, as well as Someday, which are two of the bigger, offensive-oriented, initiation flashes that Team Dignitas would like to use. Those ones will be off the board for the time being. As we said, though, Team Dignitas should be okay with, kind of farming it out here and scaling a bit towards the late game.
And it really does say sort of the story of this series, seeing how long First Blood has taken in this third and final game. First time around, things were pretty explosive early on, like what you mentioned with the gank in the top side. And second game
was out of control.
Yeah, second game was just like you said, it was a money grab game where everybody was just throwing their dollars up into the air and trying to grab as many as they could. But now in the third game, both teams have realized, hey, wait a second. This is really close.
All right, this is getting set up here. Big doesn't have flash, but he can still go on Arrow.
Shrimp trying to make the moves. Arrow being protected by Shady for now. The taunt comes in, the lockdown is there, and First Blood goes over to Dignitas. They find the kill onto that enemy Kog'Maw. Shrimp backs himself away. Low on health for now, gotta be careful, but Dignitas has 4 men top.
They should be able to push down for first turret as well. In the bottom lane, they do have Zig working on the turret, but he's just a tank. And even though the turret has a health lead, Dignitas with 4 members up here should be able to pressure. Shady and Mike Young are trying to delay it though.
They've got Ryu up here now as well. He'll be able to clear the waves away pretty effectively, and it looks like Phoenix 1 will successfully complete this, but the TP.
They have to get back there to stop it, so teleport is used by Someday to deny that first turret gold, and it's still very much up in the air. Top side backs off as he goes down there. This is going to have to be a very close watch, on that objective. Talia wall is available for Ryu, so, Phoenix 1 do have the possibility of sending a lot of resources down to that area to try and claim that bonus gold.
Dignitas have been the only team to claim something so far. They did get to pick onto Kog'Maw if nothing else. They would really like to get that turret First Blood if they could, but it was a good defense and a good rotation from Phoenix 1. It's what we wanted to see from this team coming into this series, more of that team play, looking more like the third place team that they were at the end of Spring Split as opposed to the last place team that they currently are after 2 weeks of Summer Split play.
And for people just joining us, as a little recap of the series, first game, it was all about Team Dignitas. Phoenix 1 forced Someday onto a tank, and it was Shen, funnily enough. And then they also camped him, so they kind of took out the big star player of Team Dignitas. But Keen stepped up on Victor really big, and he was able to carry a lot of team fights for them. That's how they won game number 1. But Phoenix 1 came back very quick with a 25-minute victory in game number 2. With a lot of explosive kills. In the end here in game number 3, the first turret gold is very uneventful as they just head on down there and casually pick it up to kind of even it up. And that is a little bit of a balance for the First Blood gold going over to Team Dignitas. And the health lead here on the turrets is definitely very real for Phoenix 1. again, though, Keen trying to scale up again on the Cassiopeia, has now the Rod of Ages also completed, which will continue stacking through the mid game here.
And a little bit more information for the people who might just now be joining. Remember, in both the previous games, it was the mid laners who got player of the game. Game number 1, Keen for Dignitas, 7-0-4 performance on Victor, where he carried them through multiple team fights, had 46% of the team's damage, and was just a monster. Game number 2, Ryu says, all right, let me show you how it's done. Gets himself a pentakill and uses his ults to end the game at 25 minutes on Talia. Both these two are the guys to watch here in this third game.
All right, Dragon started up here by Team Dignitas. They do have isolation with Kha'Zix. Lee Sin, though, execute damage always should be expected. And it looks like teleport's coming in too.
Made his way on top of the Cloud Drake, secured by Phoenix One. Ryu now separated from the rest of the team, though. Shrimp can say the same thing. This fight could go really crazy really quickly, Kobe. Big trying to get himself back. Winter's Bite has already been applied. Glacial Fissure now down onto Keen, who's going to be forced to flash.
They committed the teleport for this, so Zig actually finishes the teleport on Galio. Meanwhile, Team Dignitas never pulled the trigger on the, Stand United here from Someday, so he's able to get the tower in answer, even though that Cloud Drake does go over to Phoenix One.
Cloud Drake essentially traded for a top lane tier 1, as well as the temporary reward of having that Galio TP down. Considering your Shen still has his ulti and his TP is going to be up in just a moment, that's a big advantage.
Yeah, you always got to look for the next play. Whoa. Currently, though, Big
has to flash, barely getting out of that one.
And exhaust down in case they do have more action in that bottom lane. Currently, though, they're just going to leave Laud with a bunch of minions to clean up here, so should be able to inflate his CS very quickly, and then use that money to finish off his Blade of the Ruin King and catch right back up. Mike Young again, though, another Rift Herald here, immediately focused, and nobody's around for Dignitas, nor do they have any vision.
We've seen her
try and stop it.
Taken every game so far. Teams have not been ignoring this. They've not been letting it slip through the cracks, and even though this one's a little bit later than previous ones, it looks like Phoenix One will still go for the secure.
Yeah, and the top turret is so low right now. Phoenix One might not even need to use the Rift Herald on it. Again, you don't want to have to use the Rift Herald on a turret that you can just take by hand anyway. Utilize it to either create cross-map pressure or really pressure a secondary turret. Everybody is heading up there right now, though, as both AD carries and supports are kind of roaming through the mid-jungle here. Should be a clash. Remember, teleport advantage with Stand United is in Dignitas' favor, so they could try and start a fight on this side of the map over the low turret, but they're not going to go for it, and they don't even fight him over this, even with that teleport advantage. Someday hasn't really gotten control of the minion wave yet, and they're not willing to pull the trigger.
Dignitas can't get their guys in the right spot in time, and the low HP value on that turret is just a little bit too low. Phoenix One can walk in, take it, walk right out, and like you said, they don't have to expend a Herald. They can keep that in the back pocket, use it for later, and right now that Phoenix One plan of get yourself off to a decent start, then you have those big global type abilities with the Galio, with the Talia, that can allow you to get rolling later, along with the playmaking ability through multiple picks on the team. Phoenix One seems to be sitting in a spot similar to last game.
Yeah, and Phoenix One, Ryu is sitting in a spot where he's looking to use Talia ultimate to cut off the team. Doesn't quite get anyone in a bad spot, though. Zig's trying to flank, but doesn't really help there. Rift Herald is spawned in the 5-on-5.
Rift Herald shows up mid lane, rams his big old void head into that tier 1 turret. It's a female. Fine. Her big old head into the turret. Looking to take that one down as the fight breaks out. The taunt comes through. It's going to be lots of damage onto Mike Young. And he and Someday are already both out of the fight. Shady's going to be following right down into the abyss. Tier 1 still alive as Kog'Maw's ulti barely going to miss onto Big. Ryu and Arrow continuing to force the issue here.
Turret. So low, but
so damn low, but they won't take it down.
So dangerous to move up because Team Dignitas were able to get the 2-for-1 here, taking out most of the front line and then getting Zig low enough that the Galio has a hard time moving up to it, but they're going to press in on it anyway.
They throw down the miasma. The tier 1's going to fall. They're putting a lot of damage onto Keen, who's taken down by Arrow. Dignitas now having to retreat away from this one. Low mana here on Arrow. Shrimp jumping in, he brings Someday with him, and Ryu is going to be smacked down by the Thunder Sticks as the claws rend Arrow in half. Laud now looking for Zig, but bites off more than he can chew, and reinforcements arrive for both sides.
Shady able to get in there and turn around another kill. Maybe you have to look at the replay why Stand United didn't go on Keen earlier when they decided to fight over the remnants of that turret. But you know, whether it was on cooldown or whether Someday was otherwise occupied, it did allow Phoenix One to not only take that turret and get that one down as well, but get some kills for themselves and a little bit of extra money back their way. Now, a little bit of a decent lead is opening up here in the mid game with Phoenix One, you know, having the 2 turret advantage and a little bit of extra gold to work with. Right now as well, they can feed more money into Arrow on Kog'Maw. He's got a giant wave to pick up, while Keen is doing the same for Dignitas on the opposite side of the map.
And look at the Kog'Maw itemization sitting in there too. That looks like a Rage Blade being put together, an item you almost never get to see just because it's so niche. But if that thing gets up and running and you get free firing time in a team fight, that damage output is just insane. Let's take another look.
He's dead, that's why. 4 seconds left on Someday. He was not alive to ult Keen. And Keen, it's hard because you can say he went early, but the turret went down with that auto. So
Right.
it was kind of either go now or miss your opportunity with that turret opening. Hindsight would say that it was a miscalculation to go over there for the dying turret since Someday was still dead. And you know, if that's how the cooldown works out, then tough break. Here we go though, another initiation.
All right, they're turning it right back onto Phoenix One, and Mike Young is taken down before he can do much of anything. Dignitas now with a 5v4. They expended a couple of resources. They won't be able to get the taunt now onto Zig. Arrow firing off some of that living artillery, making sure that Dignitas won't chase any further. But they're still thinking about it here off to the side.
Flash is available for Someday.
They're going for Arrow if they can. They won't quite find him just yet. The Cassiopeia ultimate comes out. Someday still going to be on that front line, trying to tank it up. Spirit's Refuge dodging away from the auto attacks. Shrimp's going to be zoning Ryu, putting the damage onto him with that Kha'Zix. Jumping in, a little bit more will do it, and that is a big fight going the way of Dignitas.
And Baron is available at the moment. No
But
members
look at
of
the
Team
health
Dignitas
bars.
died. Cassiopeia, though, is a Baron killing machine. Blue buff is on, and they should be able to melt it.
Low HP on Dignitas, but not low enough to keep them away from this objective. They will be taking this down very, very rapidly. Mike Young can't get in there in time. Shady trying to do anything, but he will do nothing as Phoenix One loses control of the map just long enough for Dig to take Baron.
Let's take another look at this because Phoenix One head up here with the Talia ultimate, but it doesn't cut off much and gives them no real positional advantage. Meanwhile, on the front lines there, Lee Sin is not that tanky. Immediately gets focus fired and taken down. You know, with Shen coming in on top of everything, it's Team Dignitas with extra numbers, and Phoenix One just pushed right up the mid lane there. So risky. Numbers disadvantage, and even though the Galio taunt lands on multiple members, Someday never even had to blow his flash there. Big was the one to be able to get the initiation, so they didn't double up on cooldowns. They still got the initiation. They killed all the priority targets, and nobody was killed in the process. That was such a big, clean sweep for Team Dignitas, gaining Baron buff, multiple kills, and control of the map here.
And they'll take the Ocean Drake for it. And see, Kobe, this is echoing back to what we were talking about earlier. The objective game up until now has been for Phoenix One, while Dignitas has said, you can have the objectives, we're going to kill your dudes. Now they've killed enough dudes, they're taking
back
the
to
objectives.
The kill dude strategy.
That's the strategy that Dignitas seems to employ to success, and now they're doing it again because the objectives fall in the wake of the kills, and Dignitas will be picking those up.
Yeah, and the standing gold as well that you mentioned will do a lot to add to the Baron power play. So a lot of extra items should be coming through for Team Dignitas after the last couple of minutes here. So they rotate down to the bottom side. Stand United is available. They can just wait. Someday pushing on top side. There's Meander here into the bottom lane, getting a little bit of cross-map pressure before they really have to pull the trigger. And as we've already seen, Team Dignitas, this composition, as we mentioned earlier, is set up for really powerful counter engages.
Yep.
Cassiopeia ultimate, Varus ultimate, Stand United to come in. There's just so many tools for counter initiations that it makes it difficult for Phoenix One to try and cut them off and try and punish the split push.
And you saw what happened the last time they went to do it. Ryu throws down the wall, Mike Young's on the front line looking to find the kick, and by the time he can even think about the kick, he's already dead. very, very rough situation to be in, especially when your opponents now have that Baron buff, sieging upside this tier 2 in the bottom lane, while Someday just distracts multiple people over on the other end of the map, and Keen puts the damage into the tier 1 middle. Zig can't really find the damage to do anything impactful onto Someday any longer. Titanic Hydras plus Spirit Visage makes him almost immune to what Galio brings.
Yeah, and Keen is able to finish up that mid turret as well. Squiggly little green line autos. Not the most threatening, but definitely get the job done.
There's more intimidating things out there, but they still pack quite a sting onto the structures as long as you got enough AP.
Huh. That Taliyah wall was much less impressive than
The one from last
the
game?
game 2 ones that we saw coming out, yeah.
It was like in the same spot too. It was a diagonal angle to the tier 2 bottom. One ended the game and one made big press W.
All right, Recon W down. All right, back up.
Rats! We weren't able to capitalize in time.
But it does, again, highlight the issue that we talked about, where the counter engage is such a big possibility for Team Dignitas that because they've had so much success here earlier, and because that mid-game, mid-lane play was so big, the options are really limited for Phoenix One. And it does make it very difficult to play the game from this position now, because they kind of weren't able to get off to that very big Taliyah and Lee Sin synergy for the roams early on, and try and get that ball rolling and try and get the the split push of their own off the ground. In the end, all of that extra gold is cleaned up by Team Dignitas, and they get to go spend it without having to break a sweat.
To put things in perspective here, because this does seem really strange to say, at this time last game, there was no this time last game. Dignitas' Nexus had already exploded. That's how fast game number 2 and Phoenix One's win was. Meanwhile, here in game number 3, a much closer story being told. Dignitas, the biggest lead in the game so far now for themselves, after the objective advantages they got after the Baron, but it's still only 4,500 gold apart, and a long way from it.
Yeah, a lot more control here from Team Dignitas. They also have very reliable late game damage. Shen, constant split push, and then Cassiopeia, Kha'Zix, and Varus, very easy for them to carry the team fight. So as the options dwindle, we talk about for Phoenix One, that's kind of why Team Dignitas are feeling so casual right now. They're feeling like they're in such a secure spot. They really do have a lot of extra tools to try and deal with the initiation from Phoenix One, and we'll see if they can do it here around the mid lane. Minute 50 seconds left on that Baron, which will probably be the thing to actually spark the real conflict. Currently, though, Phoenix One are looking for an opportunity. It's definitely risky, anyone that they do go for, so they're looking for ones that are numbers advantage in their favor, trying to catch people off guard and out of position.
Until then, the name of the game will be vision control, map positioning, priority over both the lanes and objectives. Dignitas will slither and jump their way into enemy territory, feeling pretty safe about it. That's what comes with the status of having control over the map, putting down so much vision into enemy territory. Keen moving up, trying to take that buff away, but instead it's secured by Mike Young. Important part about that, though, means it's on a Lee Sin and not a Taliyah. Even if you can't steal that buff away, sometimes it's enough to just make the jungler smite.
Yep. Energy regen and cooldown reduction, not the biggest of deals for him. Meanwhile, Someday goes in!
Someday gets himself aggroed by multiple people. Redemption's gonna heal him for now. Taliyah wall used to block off any further aggro from this fight. Everybody's gonna reset.
And Someday, again, a lot of calculated moves, right? He goes in, does not burn his flash, does not burn anything besides a taunt, and he's rewarded with one ultimate. The Taliyah wall now down. And although that's kind of a small thing, you're like, it's just one ultimate. It's not even a damaging ultimate. The more of these small wins, these small cooldowns that you can draw out before the Baron spawns, is actually a pretty big deal. It ends up being a very big factor in the all-important Baron dance that comes up afterward. And Shen, even if it goes even worse than that one did, and he takes even a bigger trade for getting that cooldown, he's got standing data. He can get right back out there. He goes for another one here, and actually gets unaffected by any sort of return damage. So
Damage just doesn't hurt him. He's got the Gargoyle Stone Plate now too, so if he does go all the way into the fight, he can pop that to have absolutely ridiculous survivability in the middle of multiple opponents. And Dignitas will waste no time starting up Baron number 2. They've got Cassiopeia and a Varus with Blade of the Ruined King, along with a Kha'Zix. They melt this very, very quickly, but they don't want to take the 50-50. Instead, they're going to be turning the fight around with a taunt into a grounded. Shrimp's finding the kill onto Shady as Phoenix One will look to turn this around if they can. Shrimp with the jump over off to the side, staying alive. Dignitas gets themselves a 1-for-0, and the fight's going to fade.
They did get a lot of damage onto Shrimp as well, so Team Dignitas not going to want to start the Baron back up for any more picks. They do have really good side wave control, though. You know, with both of their side lanes already very big pushes into the secondary turrets, they would like to use this as quickly as they can, get back out on the field, and use that pressure. Currently, though, we'll take another look at this replay. They were able to focus down Shady, but again, the focus fire here from the back line of Phoenix One. Arrow got a lot of damage into Shrimp, which really reduces the threat of the Barons. Forced him back to the fountain and kind of delayed this restart here, which gave Phoenix One time.
Whoop! Shrimp got stuck in the pit, forced to take a little bit of extra damage from Baron, but Phoenix One gets there in time, using the Talia ulti to stall this out and make it so Phoenix One, again, is allowed to contest Baron fair and square in this fight.
They did draw out the teleport cooldown with that Baron start, though, so all that Team Dignitas should do now, send Someday into the side lane, push out bottom, the furthest away. They're even teleporting. He's rushing towards him since he has Stand United. They want to push this one out and force Phoenix One into deciding between positioning this Galio close enough for his ultimate at Baron or actually trying to put a stop to this push. He's headed all the way down here, which means he would have to walk up past the red quadrant of the jungle to get in range for his ultimate to answer a fight around Baron if one did break out.
It's a high-tempo play from Dignitas, making sure to force this as fast as humanly possible. Now rotating the remaining 4 members in towards mid lane. The Ocean Drake is available if they decide to divert one person over towards that. We've seen that strategy employed a couple of times so far in this series, where the team in control of the mid lane will send one person over to the Drake, take control of that one, but they are not messing around with lesser objectives today. Baron, again, the call for Dignitas.
And Galio has moved up, so they need to pull off the Baron. Really intelligent play here from Dignitas. As soon as they see Galio move away from Someday, who's splitting on bottom, they know he wants to get in range for the ultimate, so they pull off the Baron, allow the split push to kind of take its toll. He moves the minions up, and then they can kind of reset and return.
It's a very slow back and forth dance that these teams have to do, and if you miss one of the steps, you're going to find yourself tripping and falling all over the floor and looking like a goofball, and that's not where you want to be when you've worked so hard to get 32 minutes into game number 3, and you really want to walk away with the win here. We've talked about how much it means for Phoenix One to finally get on the board, get that first series win, but for Dignitas, if you win here, you go to 4-1. That is a very impressive record.
Exactly. Although there are takeaways for Phoenix One, and they can be happy with you know, the performance in especially game number 2, they'd like to be more than just happy with some performances in some games. So they actually want to get wins on the board so that they can start moving back up the standings. You know, improvement is all great, but results are also what you're looking for right now.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if you want to be one of the best teams in NALCS, you've got to have one of the best records. It all starts somewhere, but they need to have those consistent results. And for Dignitas, what this means is you go 4-1, all of a sudden you're looking like a team that can compete with the teams up at the top, the ones that everybody are thinking are the top contenders this split, your CLG, your C9, your TSM. Dignitas can enter into that equation if they just keep winning and winning and winning and winning. If you get stopped by Phoenix One, then that raises questions. Is this team really on a hot streak? Or is this a team that had a good couple of weeks, but you still got to raise those questions?
All right, Team Dignitas. So they still have the Stand United advantage over Teleport, yet they've opted to take Someday into the 5-on-5 here and group around mid instead of keeping him split pushing, instead of, again, forcing the Galio to choose between ult range and the split push. Maybe they don't have a perfect timer on the teleport, is the thing I would have to assume here. They are just going to go for the 5-on-5 around mid instead, which Phoenix One are very happy to do since they've got top lane pushing. Bottom lane's in a fine situation here. They cut off Shrimp, actually, with this Toledo wall.
Dignitas still has a slight advantage in terms of flashes, too. Ryu does not have his for a few more moments. Mike Young can say the same. Everything up in terms of summoners on the side of Dig, except for Someday's teleport. Gonna see Laud move himself up there, just clear out some of that top side wave that was pushing from Phoenix One. As Big jumps in, grabs himself a knock-up onto the enemy Galio, and now the fight is going to be breaking out. Keen off to the side, looking to put those twin fangs into the gargoyle. Dignitas gets some damage, but that is it. Galio is too tanky to really have a lot of results from him being the focus.
And since they didn't pressure earlier when the teleport was down, Phoenix One have actually been able to wait out that duration, and Galio now not only has his ultimate, but also has the teleport, so much more mobility and possibilities of Phoenix One answering these plays. Right now they're taking the initiative, though, in this clean Baron pit to start it up.
Phoenix One says, you can do it, we can do it too. Baron started up, but they immediately back out, recognizing Dignitas is nearby. Just keeping them conscious, just making sure that they're awake.
All right, yeah. The only thing I have to assume is that Team Dignitas did not have a perfect timer on the teleport cooldown before, why they would not have pressure to side lane earlier. But now they're back to it, and they've sent Someday down bottom. The only problem is now, Team United has been used. So if Someday has to join, then it has to be his teleport coming up. And that's why Phoenix One are, even though they're behind, are starting up the Baron. They're kind of making Dignitas check, making them hesitate, and hoping to draw out a cooldown.
And I liked what I saw right there from Shrimp. And obviously, it doesn't apply as much to Kha'Zix because Kha'Zix does it automatically. But when you know your opponents are checking the Baron, you fire your skill shot at Baron instead of where you think the opponent is, because Baron will do so much damage to them by smacking them with his auto attacks over and over again. Speaking of plenty of damage, there's enough into that tier 2 to take it down, bring Dignitas' turret count up to 5, and their gold lead up to almost 7,000. Phoenix One must be conscious of that difference and make sure when they're taking these fights, they know that they've got some sort of an edge going into them, whether it be in terms of the amount of people they can bring to it or the positional advantage they'll get from a good Talia wall. Something has got to give them that extra edge to make up for the gold deficit.
All right, Phoenix One doing a pretty good job of stabilizing here as Dignitas have let up on the pressure. They are still scaling, as we said. They have really good scaling DPS here. You know, Keen from the back line. Varus and Kha'Zix will do just fine, and Rakan's got both shields completed with the Locket and Redemption synergy coming through, but you have to wonder, you know, who is going to be able to get that pressure on the side? You know, Galio is much slower to react than Shen because he either has to walk a large distance to get in range for the ultimate, which the ultimate itself already has a delay built into it.
Right.
You have to walk and then use it. It's not usually in a very good spot, or they would have to wait for teleport channel time. So again, they should still continue to the split foot strategy to try and take advantage of that small timing window. And they're doing it here. It's just that the minion wave is so far away. Phoenix One don't really feel the pressure yet.
And Phoenix One, for a team that's been playing on their back foot for pretty much the entirety of the game, are doing pretty well. They don't seem really nervous. It doesn't seem like they're sweating in this kind of a situation as Mike Young looks to jump in, but he is going to be punished. The chains of corruption will lock him down and take him low as Shrimp gets himself to stand united. Someday makes his way into the fight. A grounding miasma finds its target of Zig. Someday backing out, Spirit's Refuge, keeping him healthy. Both sides going to be expending some resources there. Mike Young with no flash to start these fights off.
Also very low health for him. He needs to get it back off of something. They're not giving him any time, though. Baron is started out. They're burning it down so quickly.
Dignitas will not give Mike the opportunity to build that HP pool back up to where it needs to be. As the knockup comes in, the charm is out, the damage is through, but the knockback onto Shrimp. And now the fight's going to be going full force as Someday is taken low, Shrimp is taken down, and the fight has gone the way of P1 so far. Zig grabbing the taunt onto 2 people, but Phoenix One is critically low in terms of health. Lod looking to make the snipe, almost finds Shady.
No members of Phoenix One are down, but Someday went back to base again to the fountain and is teleporting back out onto the field.
Still a 4v5 for Dig, but they've got health advantage. Blinking red lights for Phoenix One as they retreat.
Oh, teleport comes back out from Zig as well. They don't want to let him get away with this Baron, and they should be able to collapse onto the Baron pit.
It's gonna be Zig and Ryu and Arrow trying to stop this. You've still got Mike Young and Shady back, making their way towards it as fast as they can. Baron taken low, but now peeled off of. Zig having to retreat from the rest of Dignitas as they have to be careful about this collapse. Lod is down to half HP, the chains of corruption out onto Arrow, but the taunt is there, and Lod is going to be forced to flash over the wall. The damage onto Big, as Keen is taken low, but finds the kill onto Arrow before he goes. It's a 1-for-1 in the fight so far, but Dignitas is still in retreat here. Lod gonna be forced out to the side. Mike Young grabbed the kill onto Big. Lod's still gonna be chased down. Into the back line goes Someday, trying to find the kill onto Ryu. Shady's still gonna be taken low too. Shrimp into the back line with the kill onto that Mage. Takes down the MVP from game 2, and now looks for more. Can they find the damage onto Mike Young? I think they can. A double kill for Lod. Zig's gonna be going down, and the ace for Dignitas.
2 men left standing after all of that. Must have been a 3-minute fight there for you, Captain. And the Baron will be the last one to die afterwards. My goodness, Team Dignitas looked like they were making such a risky play. 4 versus 5, starting up the Baron. But due to the recall staggered times there from Phoenix 1, the damage isn't there for the re-engage. Shrimp comes back off of dying onto the field, able to clean up the extra kills and focus on the DPS members. What an absolute slugfest. All right,
wow.
So technically, this is all the members available here for Phoenix 1, but they're spread out. So Team Dignitas collapse up into the top side, and it's a good taunt there from Zig, got all of them, and the Talia wall kind of separates Lod, but here comes Shrimp. You can see him on the mini-map from the Fog of War at the moment. From the fountain, he's heading all the way up, and Lod does a very good job of surviving. Someday on the front line takes such a beating. He makes Ryu flash out there. On the backside, though, let's get back to live gameplay.
We don't even have time,
baby.
We're already on to Elder Drake as Dignitas, blessed with the Baron, now seeking blessing number 2. The charm comes out, but it's only onto the front line. Lod secures the Elder Drake for the side of Team Dignitas, but Big has already been taken down. The wall will separate Keen from the rest of the team, and the isolation rockets will slow down Phoenix 1 as they attempt to chase towards Dig. Health bar's low enough, taking damage from that Elder Drake burn. Phoenix 1 doesn't want to chase into this any longer, not in that situation at least. They've got a 5v4.
Yeah, but only for another 25 seconds. They killed the support. Lowest level means lowest death timer. And with both the Elder Dragon and the Baron buff up here on Team Dignitas, they have to really worry about the counter push, because Team Dignitas, as soon as Big is up, they're gonna look for it. Someday's already in the bottom lane, and their base is under attack, so that push on mid was very, very risky for them. Dignitas already looking for the counterplay.
We made a joke earlier about those Thundersticks not doing enough damage to structures. Light one of those suckers on fire and watch how much damage he can do if given time in this split push scenario. Someday making sure that he's got that chance.
Still not very intuitive. The flaming plastic you wouldn't think would be super effective.
Yeah, it would probably melt, but it would still be scarier than a normal one.
Regardless, though, the squiggly green line's on fire as well, as the autos from Keen got some damage on the mid turret. And here it is. Big is alive. He's coming to join the team. They have all the buffs that they would ever dream for here in the Elder Dragon and the Baron. So this is it. The final defense here from Phoenix 1. Can they make the play happen? They don't have much time.
They gotta find their chance somewhere because the mid lane inhibitor turret has fallen. Inhibitor now the target. Lod's attack speed very, very rapid to bring these down quickly. Zig on the side, can't find a chance to go in, look for any sort of taunt, knock up, anything. Dignitas will take inhibitor number 1, back themselves away. Still having both Baron buff and Elder buff for a little bit longer.
So many flashes are also available. It's a huge amount of playmaking here available for Team Dignitas, and they also have a tremendous advantage in just pure DPS.
Here we go. They are not willing to stop. They're going to find the taunt onto 2. The fight's breaking out. Lod firing in the arrows into the middle of the fight. Phoenix 1 with the defensive option for now. Gargoyle Stoneplate there onto the chin. Shrimp grabbing the kill onto Shady as Big is brought down in retaliation. Arrow is going to be bug food as he is splattered onto the ground, along with Phoenix 1's dreams of winning this game. And Dig will go to 4-1.
Oh my goodness, what a way to end the series here. And Team Dignitas are going to be able to take it. Ryu fighting for the Nexus turrets, though.
He's trying, but what are you going to do? He doesn't have that massive gold advantage like he did in game number 2. Keen will find the ace.
Holy moly, and Lod, Keen, and Someday left alone with the Nexus.
Dignitas has to fight for it. Big is just...
What else are you gonna do when you're looking at your death timer? It's just
You're just,
casual.
your screen's black and white. You're like, "Lod, no, let me watch it through yours. I like the color better."
Yeah, something's wrong with my screen over here.
Yeah, my screen's all goofed up. It says it'll go back to normal in about 45 seconds, but let me just watch through yours instead. What a performance from Dignitas. They had game number 1 on lock. Game number 2 was swiftly turned around. And then in game number 3, the closest one in the series, they showed why they are at 3-1 and why they deserve to go to 4-1.
Definitely a lot to be proud of for that squad. You know, coaching staff has talked about communication and all the focus they're doing in practice. This is one of the teams that's picked up so many extra substitutes as well that they're really looking to build out the bigger rosters. As everybody moves towards that 10-man setup, people scrambling trying to pick up good subs that are also ready for the LCS stage gets more and more important, and we're seeing them actually get the playtime and have that impact in the LCS more and more.
And Phoenix won, although they're still on the quest to find that first series win in Summer Split 2017. They looked better today than we've seen them look in the first couple of weeks, especially there in game number 2. That was a team that doesn't look like a 0-5 team. That was a team that showed an ability to play in a coordinated fashion, play around their carries, set things up, and execute to end the game quickly. They just have to figure out how to make that a consistent result.
Yep, Phoenix One definitely had a lot of fight in them here in this series, and they have some good takeaways. But again, you're looking at 0-5 and starting to get a bit antsy down there at the bottom of the schedule, considering they came from 3rd place in spring.
Well, to break down the series and wrap up our day, we're going to send things over to the analyst desk. Take it away, guys.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I mean, what a crazy series. Woo. It's going to make it very hard to kind of break it down granularly and really get a lot out of it, because it felt like so many of our series today actually were very skirmish heavy and less focused on actually, you know, setting up fights and strategy around the map. All that said, before we get into the gameplay itself, let's take a look at champions. Like, we have the Kog'Maw come out for Arrow, so still very much a team that seems centered around Arrow being the true and main carry. Ryu on the Talia, you know, looking to maybe roam and affect those side lanes, and yet it doesn't work out in a victory for them.
There are a number of fights where you could see that the Kog'Maw was able to be protected and kept alive for a lot of it. I like the Braum and the Galio for being able to do that, as well as still having playmaking. You can go in with the Lee Sin, try and insect somebody back. You have Talia who can drop, you know, pretty big burst damage, and then the Galio can go on the Lee, or you have a lot of tools. And at the end of the day, it just felt like the Kog'Maw never quite got off the ground, got to the Blade of the Rune King relatively quickly, got to Ginsu's on pace about, maybe a little slow, but then it took forever to complete the 3rd item, and it was kind of past the point where the tanks were able to, you know, deal with him for about 10 seconds, and Kog'Maw needs to melt the front line,
right,
but before that they get through your front line, and for the most part, Cassio was out DPSing the Kog'Maw.
Yeah, that QSS came out, but definitely slowed down his build, having to invest the 1,300 gold in it all. Of course, as you mentioned, I actually really do love this Phoenix One comp. Conceptually, it didn't necessarily get executed to the degree that it needed to in order to, you know, to ultimately result in the victory. On the flip side, Dignitas, once again, we're seeing the prowess of playmakers, specifically in that support role. So many of the fights were initiated from a recon ult flash into the knockup on multiple priority targets.
Yeah, they were able to catch a lot of people out. A lot of the time it ended up being like Mike Young on the Lee Sin kind of getting caught out, and then the Galio comes on him, and Arrow's kind of ignored. The fights were very, very scrappy. It was rarely a time where Kog'Maw gets caught out of position off a great flank or something like that. Both Galio and Shen like being in the side lane, so they weren't quite the kind of TP flanking tanks that you sometimes see. They're much more of the react to the enemy team kind of ones, and it did lead to a game where it was very helter-skelter.
And as it was very skirmishy, let's just go ahead and take a look at the second to last fight, the one that nets Dignitas Baron in a 5-4-3, 38 minutes into the game. With this Baron, they will push to close the remaining of the series.
Oh boy, all right, so this starts out with Dig. They had gone on to Baron after they had lost their jungler, actually, and you see the fact that P1 wants to collapse, finish them down. Mike Young gets a nice 3-man kick here, and it's looking like it's going to be pretty good on the side of P1. Kogma's untouched, but a nice turn by Keen here onto Arrow is able to melt him down and trade his life out for it. Very important to take him down. In the meantime, Someday is still kind of a brick in front with no longer having the Kogma DPS to take him down. He's sitting in the front, so even though that it looks like it's going bad for Dig, he's going untouched, gets Ryu low, and this free Shrim up to kind of jump through the fight, get over top of everybody, clean up the kill onto Ryu, and now there's no longer a backline threat available, and you should be able to win this with Wad still alive, never actually getting finished off. And like we said, crazy fight. Yeah, ends up a 5 for 3, but with Someday the tank available and the DPS are a lot available, they're able to turn on to Baron at the end of that fight.
Yeah, exactly. They get the Baron buff onto 4 of the members by delaying the actual execution of the Baron until some people res from their death timers. From there, it did kind of demonstrated an understanding of how to close the game, march it down mid, get the first inhib, go bot lane with that pressure, execute one more final team fight, pick up the victory itself. Big is going to get player of the game this time around, as we talked about. So much of the one fights for Dignitas were in those back and forth skirmishes and eventual, flash knock up onto a priority target or 2 from the Rakan. So great to see that out of him.
Definitely, but a team performance overall. Big played great. Good job stepping up as well. We know he's a vocal part of that team, and with this game going late, he's got to have a big voice in that as well. But multiple members of Dignitas at different points in the game had to step up and perform.
Now, we talk about, the game as a whole, but now I want to zero in on Mike Young as a player here making his NALCS debut. Again, a hard-fought 3-game series, still looking for the first win for the organization in this split. What's your report card here on Mike Young?
Mike who? Mike Young?
There it is.
Yeah, I think he's all right. I would give him a C, I would say, about.
A C?
Yeah, because
right.
he came in
like the whole alphabet? A C out of A to Z? Or?
C as in the general
Okay.
grading system within the
All
North
right, so
America,
very average.
United States. Yeah, so pretty average because he had some plays, he turned some ganks, especially in the first game, was able to get 2 kills on the top side, get a turret, get a Rift Herald. Not bad. Did not come in and stomp like, an A person would if you're talking about like Dardoch when he debuted. It looked amazing.
Right.
Not as bad as some other people who debut and kind of choke on stage, can't find openings and die. Is about the Grigne level that we saw earlier last week when he stepped in and did fine, but was not the spark plug that the team needs.
Right, that's interesting because I would say that one of the things I look for most in a rookie player, a new player, is confidence, right? And so whether or not the plays are actually connecting, whether or not it's resulting in the victory, the fact that he's willing to go for the plays, and that's the one thing I will say that was evident throughout the 3 games, is that he's looking for plays and he was willing to, to kind of take that stab on the stage first time out.
Yeah, but like we said, this is his Lee Sin. You even heard Dardoch in the interview before we tossed to the stream was saying that, oh yeah, he's a bit of a Lee one trick. And I didn't see like what I saw out of even Acadia when he showed up on Rengar, and he was known as a Rengar one trick, and he stomped the LCS his first couple games. Not quite seeing that out of Mike Young so far.
Very fair. Last thing I want to talk about, as we talked about with the CLG FlyQuest series, I wouldn't say, again, this series inspires confidence for either of these teams. When you're looking at Dignitas coming into the day at 3-1, it should have been a much easier close.
And it does seem like a couple of the teams who have high-rated or better win rates are still struggling to close games out quickly. Dignitas is really good about forcing Barons in like the 20-minute mark, but if people are able to cover that and the game goes into 30, 40, their team fight engages aren't super clean if some days not on some kind of huge carry. So they're struggling to win games that don't come off the back of a someday carry or a really early Baron. And that's kind of the case where if you're up against P1, who still have pretty reasonable carries in Ryu and Arrow and even Zig, you do kind of get into these scrappy games, but you would have liked to have seen a little bit better out of a team so highly rated so far.
So we're willing to call Immortals at the end of today or this weekend definitively a top-tier team in Summer Split. Are you willing to make the same statement around Dignitas, or do you need to see more?
I would still need to see more.
Okay.
I think when you go to a really scrappy 3-game series against the only winless team in the NALCS, as well as the fact that you lost game 2 in such a definitive manner, it's a little scary for them.
All right, now on the side of Phoenix One, again, as they're still searching for their first victory, we have heard that Special is going to come in tomorrow. I mean, when it comes to having some direction, one would assume that his experience on the stage, particularly next to a young guy like Mike Young, it might bode well for them in picking up some victories here in the future.
You would hope so. That's what you're looking for when you bring him in, because he's not been known as this lane dominant support for a while. He has an idea of how he wants to play the game. Sometimes it's been too much for some teams, and they think he might be hard to work with at some different parts. But I think, you know, if you need someone to say, like, we should be doing this, I want to do this, that sounds like it seems what P1 needs right now, because you look at some of their games and it seems like they're lost.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we'll see if that can net them their first victory tomorrow. Let's go ahead and wrap up the day, by pulling up the standings with their win today. Immortals end their weekend in first, leaving Team Dignitas and Counterlogic Gaming close behind them in second, while TSM, Team Envy, and Echo Fox share fourth. We'll see who can disrupt our teams at the top with our matches tomorrow. Coverage kicks off with Team Envy versus TSM, followed by our Civil War rivalry between FlyQuest and Cloud9. Over on NALCS2, Phoenix 1 take to the stage versus Counterlogic Gaming. Then Team Dignitas look to take down Echo Fox later in the battle theater. You can tell it's the end of the day.
A lot of
anyway,
in there,
now for myself, the casters, and the entire live broadcast crew, thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow for more and more North American LCS. Good night. Oh, look, it's night.
The stage is set for our first series as Team Liquid will go up against TSM. Oh, he hooked her. Oh, right on the edge. Gets the dance out. Still going to go double lift. One last shot. It's the flash forward from Piglet. Gets wiped out by the Ignite from Biofarms. He goes down as well. And we'll see Double Lift enter the fight. He's got Lorlo, though. He was hitting the tank. They don't even decide to go back for him. Double Lift still has enough.
WN2, W1.
Give up.
Bitar.
Nice, that's it.
2 games to 0. TSM take down Team Liquid.
Oh damn, TSM Double does not have an MSI icon. This is the NA has no more first seed at Worlds icon. Oh my god. It's okay. We're playing a long con anyway. Yep. It's the long con.
Go.
These two.
No flash, no flash.
Go. I heal.
Got it.
Nice.
Afro is maybe dead. Oh no, he doesn't have flash. He's just gonna die. Oh, he's gone down. Movie just barely staying alive. Finally picked off, but more kills coming across. Darshan trying to pull his weight, but it is the ace for FlyQuest 3v0. He's not gonna die anytime soon. They've got to kite away. There's a Peacemaker made, and now Stixay in a 1 versus 2 turtle. He's getting the headshot. He landed the net.
He's Hey guys, Ash bush in! Ash, go push! I'm coming! Ash, right there!
Right up against the Chain CC, Zig. Now finding himself bursted down, Keen going unstoppable. Zig's underneath the Nexus turrets, finding the burst, gets himself the damage, drops the aggro, and it's a clean ace. Grabbing the kill onto Shady as Big is brought down in retaliation. Arrow is going to be bug food as he is splattered onto the ground, along with Phoenix One's dreams of winning this game.
I have a chain. Nice.
Flashes out, looking for sneaky as Jensen is going to take that party. Huge mistake from Cody's son.
I stun him. Watch me. I can go.
Gets eaten up by Smoothie. Jensen still looking for a Smoothie with an insane good. There's the shutdown, double shot back for Pro Delta. And Cody rips the rest of the team apart. That's going to be game.